ahead, Jim. Everybody, thank you for coming tonight. Tonight's meeting is with Bob Swanson of Perry White Pipes, this meeting. And I'll let Bob have the floor for you, but everybody is also free tobacco tonight, and I see everybody ate. And if you have any questions after the meeting, Bob will be happy to talk it over with you. Bob?
Okay. Again, I've been a pipe smoker for 48 years. I made my first pipe in 1975. I started making, I guess you'd say commercially, pipes in 2007 under the Perry White line. I bought and sold pipes as an estate seller. I've repaired pipes. I'm a Sheraton collector. I started the Sheraton Collector Society in Chicago in 2006. And there's probably 1,000 Sheratons out there that I've redone and repaired and so forth. That's probably a conservative number. The only reason I tell you this is we're gonna go through some things that are really basics. When I look around, I think most of you guys are pretty seasoned smokers. I don't know if we got any really new people. Do we? Anybody? Okay. Okay. Some of this stuff is review for everybody, but it's so we'll get started. Things you should know and should be looking for and not looking for when you buy a pipe. All of this is my opinion. Okay, there may be disagreement with it. I'm willing to take questions when I'm done, but I'm just going to go through this very quickly. One of the things that you definitely should not look for, in my opinion, is the gurus out there. And what I mean by gurus is, example, over in those magazines and so forth over there, there's a lot of self-appointed people who want to give you a lot of ideas. I see Frank shaking his head on what's good in a pipe and what's bad in a pipe and so forth. And unfortunately, especially recently, in the last few years, a lot of people have gotten misled, and the newer guys, especially that are new to pipe smoking, have gotten misled by things that just aren't the case with smoking. So we're going to cover some of that too. One of the things that is really being discussed a lot now is called the gap. And the gap is the different distance between the tenon and the draft hole, okay, where the draft hole comes in. So where this tenon meets the draft hole, what people are telling you is it should meet and be tight, and there should be no gap there. Okay, now I will tell you this, that if you pick up a Dunhill, which has been around for, I think we all know Dunhill. If you pick up a Sheraton and you pull this apart and you measure the distance, and there's a gap of at least 1/8 of an inch, sometimes 1/4 of an inch, sometimes more. The idea with Sheraton, for example, was that gap that they left in there was to pick up the oils and the juices that you create when you smoke the pipe, and to cool the smoke a little bit. So it was a chamber for that. Now what's being said nowadays is you got to close that gap, and it should be tight. There's actually pipe makers that are saying that they are within 1 millimeter. Well, I can tell you this, it's impossible to be within 1 millimeter. Number one, how are you going to measure the 1 millimeter? Number two, when you put a drill bit in here and you drill the hole, there's always a gap. If you guys have used drill bits, you know there's a taper on the end of the drill bit. So you can't push the tenon in, and that taper is usually at least 1/16, if not more. So the gap is kind of, that's my opinion on the gap, I guess. What you should look for in a pipe, and what you should look at in a pipe, is look at first of all, you should ask about how open your draft is. Your draft hole. Your draft hole is the distance from the tenon into the bowl. And that draft, the wider it is, the better it is. Years ago, we used to have pipes that were 1/8 of an inch. That even Sheraton and Dunhill were drilling them that thin. That's a very thin draft hole. A big draft hole is 11/64. Average draft, good size draft hole is 5/32, and some guys do 9/16. But I would suggest looking for a 5/32 at least. The other part of it is that this draft hole creates a coolness as it brings up the smoke to you. When you look at the button on the end of this is the button on the pipe. You want to see that there is a V in there, that it's hollowed out. So you're creating, again, another area for the smoke to cool. It's important that your smoke cools because that's how you're going to taste the tobacco better. And if you open up a pipe, opening up again means making the draft hole wider. If you open up a pipe that's narrow, believe me, you will be amazed at how it changes your smoke and how it changes the taste in the smoke and how you can taste the pipe better and the tobacco better. So, okay, the inner bowl is another item. So this bowl inside here, there's a lot of guys that feel that you should be able to put your finger in there and it should be smooth as can be, smooth as silk. I can tell you, as a Sheraton smoker for many years, Sheratons were very hard to break in, and the reason they were very hard to break in is because that bowl was so smooth and so coated and so polished. I shouldn't say coated, polished, okay? It's what you want to have is a texture in your bowl, because you want to create a cake, okay? And so you want a bowl that is not smooth and polished, contrary to what we're all probably used to looking at. If you got a bowl that has a little texture in it, and I just mean a little bit, so I'm saying like sanded to 150 grit, for example, or 200 grit. You got a little texture in there, your tobacco will catch and it will cake, the bowl will cake better. The better your bowl cakes, the cooler it's going to smoke for you, and the more you're going to taste your tobacco. The other thing that can change the bowl is, and what you see a lot, is coatings. And there's been a lot of talk about coatings being negative. Coatings, I think, are positive. I remember a day when I didn't think that. I mean, probably 30 years ago, I used to think something was wrong in there. And indeed, when they coat with a water glass is, there's two types of coatings in general. Water glass and then food grade, let's say, coatings. Water glass is just like a paint that goes in there. And the water glass really is used more to hide defects in the bowl. So there might be a little type of defect in there. A coating creates a cake instantly for you. So, example, I have pipes up here that have no coating, and I have pipes that have coatings. I have customers who like no coating. I have customers who like coating. I can tell you this, if you buy a coated bowl pipe and it's a good coating, the pipe tastes like it's broke in immediately. You have a cake in there instantly. So that's kind of a nice thing. I don't know how many guys feel that there's another thing that's going on out there, and that is you're supposed to, when you buy a pipe and start breaking it in, you clean it out with a paper towel when you get done smoking it. Well, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You got to create a cake, so you leave the residue that you create from smoking the tobacco in the bowl, in the pipe. Okay, and that now, if we were talking about while we're talking about breaking in, there is a method to breaking in, and this is a suggestion, this is my opinion, and it's something that you can find in Alfred Dunhill's book on pipe smoking, and that is, you start with a half a bowl. Then you go down to a quarter of a bowl, and you start smoking quarter of a bowl, and you work your way up. Right, Frank? Okay. And you then you get to the top of the bowl, and as you go up, it creates this effect in the bowl. So you got a taper in there. You'll have a better smoking pipe if you do it that way, rather than just filling the pipe full and smoking it down. Unless the exception to it is the coated bowl. You can just fill that up and go. So that's a nice thing about the coating. Aged briar. There's an awful lot of new pipe makers out there, and there's a lot of people that are making pipes and buying briar that has not been aged and has not been boiled. Briar should be boiled, and then it should be dried for a couple years after it's boiled. A good briar cutter will do that. So they cut the briar, they go up and dig the briar out, they cut the briar just like a diamond cutter cuts a diamond, and they cut it so that it's going to fit the bowl of the pipe and so forth, and then they boil it, and then they dry it. The briar maker I use happens to be one of the most used briar cutter, I should say, one of the most used briar cutters in the world, really. And he ages his for 2 years. So when I get briar from him, and I'm not just saying me, I'm saying a lot of the guys that make pipes, it's at least 2 years old then. Okay, I put my pipe, my briar on the rack then in my shop, and it's aged for at least another 2 years. So I don't even make a pipe out of a block of briar until it's been above ground and air dried for